This is WCN, the Whole Care Network. You talk, we listen. Content presented on the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed during this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent views of the Whole Care Network. Always consult your physician for medical and fitness advice, and always consult your attorney for legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
Have you ever met anybody that has caregiving on their bucket list of things to do in life?
Beyond caregiving, how do we care?
We also have to care for ourselves.
How do we treat friends, family, strangers we meet?
Forget it.
How do we heal? The physical, social, financial, spiritual.
Hello.
By creating healing ties. Tying it all together like a bow tie. With your host, Christopher McClellan, the bow tie guy.
Well, greetings, everyone. It is Christopher McClellan. You might know me as the bow tie guy. And we are continuing with our 30 podcast in 30 days as we're celebrating National Family Caregivers Month. And goodness, we're on episode 29, so that means we only have one more left. Oh, but this has been a fun month. We've met a lot of great people. We've really revealed a lot of fun facts from so many people. But, you know, as we continue on with our next two Healing Ties podcast, we're still promoting and asking our listeners to go and visit our new soft launch of our Whole Care Network website. Well, you got to go to the old site to get to the new site, but you'll see the link right on the old site's page, front page. It's wholecarenetwork.com. And then when you get to the new site, you'll meet a fellow by the name of Bo, because Bo ties things together on the Whole Care Network. As soon as you see Bo, you'll get it 100%. And to keep matters in perspective, we're also debuting a 24/7 streaming radio service early in 2021, as well as our new YouTube channel featuring live shows. That's going to happen in January too. There's a lot going on with the new Whole Care Network, and we appreciate everybody's feedback that we've received in our 30 podcast in 30 days. It really hasn't been as hard as people have been asking me. So how are you doing these 30 podcasts in 30 days? Well, a lot of that is because our executive producer, Bill Odman, but we'll save that for the conversation tomorrow. I am so excited to introduce my guest today, Roseanne Corcoran. Roseanne is an in-home primary sandwich caregiver and Daughterhood Circle Leader. Leveraging her skills from a bachelor's degree in English communication, she created the Daughterhood Podcast to bring her empathetic view of caregiving from a first-person perspective to help others navigate the uncharted, disorientating, and tumultuous waters of caregiving. That was a mouthful, Roseanne.
That was a mouthful, Chris.
I think that was an English major who wrote that.
I think you're right.
Well, Roseanne, welcome.
Thank you, Chris. How are you?
I'm good. You know, I'm going to risk something right off the bat.
Uh-oh.
It can either make 28 other people very unhappy with me.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't say it correctly, it's going to make you unhappy with me. So I'm going to risk it.
Oh, I'm very nervous.
I'm going to try not to get my tongue twisted in my mustache and beard.
Okay.
But this is our 29th episode of our 30 podcast in 30 days. And then tomorrow we're doing a capstone, Bill and I, our executive producer, to kind of give a future of where the network is going. But on the 29th podcast, I saved the best for second last.
Wow. Thank you.
I think I got it right now.
I think
So I
you
know
did.
there's 28 other people that are probably mad at me.
I'm
for that.
thinking. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
thinking.
Well,
Thank
I'll
you.
just send them your way because you're an English major and you could probably talk your way out of it better than I can.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I
Well,
appreciate it.
we've been looking forward to this. And, Roseanne, we've only just known each other since the summer, but we feel like we've known each other forever.
We do.
And it's really a pleasure to know you and be your friend and to know your story about the care that you're giving for your mom.
Thank you.
So I know it, but I know my listeners don't. So please tell us a little bit about your mom and what you do for her.
Well, first, let me say thank you, Chris, for welcoming me and including me in your network and for making me your most looked forward to guest. I appreciate that.
I'm in trouble. I know.
Oh, yeah, big time. But thank you for really. Let's say, well, my mom was starting to have trouble right around when she turned 80.
Mm-hmm.
So when she was 81, we had the diagnosis of mild cognitive impairment. And, that sets you down a path of nothingness and everything, because on my side, everything was changing. But on the outside world, nothing was changing because none of her doctors would even have any kind of input to that. I would say, we have this diagnosis, and they'd say, oh, it's fine.
It's fine.
And I was like, it's not fine. It's not fine. None of this is fine.
Exactly.
So at that point, my kids were in elementary school and middle school. I was the home and school president. I was a realtor. My husband traveled. It was bedlam. And I was trying to be everywhere for everybody, which, is a little hard.
It's a little hard, but that's
not
what caregivers do, and
that's
mothers.
Exactly. And I know I'm not alone in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as things go, things kept getting worse. And I always say I was fortunate in that she had an issue where she had passed out. And it was 5 years ago. And I thought, I can't, I was running back and forth. I would drop my daughter off and drive down and spend the day with my mother and then leave and come back and pick my daughter up from school, like that kind of thing every day. Mm-hmm. There were times that I was going back down at night after I had been there during the day, and then I would wind up going down at night because she didn't feel well, and it was crazy. So when that happened, I scooped her up and brought her back to my house and thought, we've got to decide something. Mm-hmm. And my kids and my husband said, if I said, what do we do here? What should I do? And they said, if she doesn't stay here, we're never going to see you, which, was going to happen because it just keeps getting worse.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Now, I should say my mother's fiercely independent. She had her own life. She worked until she was 83. She was a hairdresser. She retired at 83. She had 50 years in the business.
Oh, goodness.
Yes.
She saw a lot of changes in that business.
She saw a lot of changes in that business, and she made a lot of people happy in that business. And she was also a ballroom dancer. My father had passed right when I was about 17.
Yeah,
and
I remember you telling me that story. Yeah.
Yep. And she created this second life for herself as a ballroom dancer. And she and her partner would go up and down all around dancing every weekend. It was a beautiful thing to see. So for her to lose all of that on top of all of the people in her life was just, it's an awful segue to the next part of your life, And so we moved her in, and it was my oldest daughter's senior year and my youngest daughter's 8th grade year in middle school, which middle school's awful to begin with.
Yes. Never want to go back.
No, thank you. So we, moved her in and went to doctor after doctor. I mean, I tried, and everybody would say, no, she's fine. No, she's fine. And I was so frustrated and angry at not being able to get any help, at not being able for anybody to say, okay, let's talk about this. Even the neurologist, I never, we had an MRI, we went for the mini mental. And when I called her for the results of the MRI, age related, blah, 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 I said, well, what about the mini mental? And she said, I don't have that. And I was like, you gave her, you administered this test. And she said, I don't have it in my file. And I said, well, should she live by herself? And she said, oh, no, never. Don't. She shouldn't be living by herself. Oh, okay. Well, hey, thanks for your help. I frustrated to the nth degree. And, here's my mother, fiercely independent. When am I going home? I'm going to go home. When am I going home? And I would say, after the next appointment, Mom, after the next appointment. And that's how we kind of got into that. And then it was, Mom, maybe you should just stay here. And that's how we wound up with that whole just ridiculousness of trying to figure out what the heck was happening. And I knew it, Chris.
Right.
I knew it. She wasn't eating. I'd say, what did you have for dinner, Mom? And she'd say, eggs. And I'd go down the next day and I'd open a refrigerator and there'd be a dozen eggs.
Right. All those telltale signs.
All those, paid the rent twice. All of those typical things. And then the not so typical things, like when we would go to the grocery store and she would think she knows everybody. Or we would be in the car driving and she'd say to she'd be like, oh, we know him. And I'd be like, okay, all right.
just play along.
I just play along. It just went along. So there were a lot of those types of things that were happening.
Right. And I think a very important component of this that you haven't talked about, this just didn't happen yesterday.
No.
This started in 2009.
Yes.
So you're into, not very good at math, but you're approaching your 12th year with this.
Yes. Yes, I am. Yes,
and
I am.
How old are your kids now?
Well, let's see. My oldest just turned 23 and my youngest is 19.
So
they've
lived watching their mom beautifully take care of her mom.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
And you have taught them well by this example. I'm sure there's been some days that are better than others. But that's, I hope this sounds like a positive comment, but to be able to teach your kids by example of what it means to care, I think is so valuable.
Thank you. Yes. And I've talked to them about it because, as a mom,
right,
it's hard because at the end of the day, I feel like somebody's always getting the shaft. And
exactly.
And I've talked to them even just last year, and I said to them, I feel bad because I feel like I've changed our lives. And my oldest daughter said, really, what else would we be doing?
How beautiful.
And I was like, well, I think she said no. She said, I understand what you're saying. She said, but we get it now. And we get it because it's not about the quantity of time. It's about the quality of time.
Right.
Which is true.
And to have that demonstrated at an early age, because it, let's just talk turkey here. There could be a time down the road where the roles will change. And they're not going to have any hesitation.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily want them to do this, though, Chris.
Well, no parent. I'm sorry. Obviously I'm not a parent, but I don't know of any parent that wants that to happen. But when you instill the example of what it means, it's just a given. I firmly believe that, and that's one of the many things that I admire about you. And I just had to say it publicly.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and it's and to that point, when my mother would be lucid in those moments and she would look at me and say, I'm so sorry you have to take care of me. And it would just break my heart.
Right.
And I'd say, Mom, it's my honor to be able to take care of you.
I would not think of anything else I'd rather do.
Right.
And that's one of those, one of the many examples of why people like caregivers
Mm-hmm.
are bound together, even when you don't really know each other, but you do know each other. It's kind of like, I reminisce on our first phone call.
Mm-hmm.
I'd read a little bit about you, and you had read a little bit about me. And
Mm-hmm.
so there was that comfort zone that you get with other caregivers immediately.
Yes.
And then when you have the conversation, and that connection really happens.
Right. Yes. Agreed. And that's what's so important about caregivers speaking to each other, and supporting each other.
Exactly. It's the validation.
Right.
It's the resources that we share with one another. It's that respite
Mm-hmm.
that we so desperately seek and don't know how to access.
Right.
But when one caregiver talks to another caregiver, well, it makes sense. It makes a lot more sense than talking to a doctor who says, "Oh, I don't have that in my file."
Right? Yes, exactly. And you don't have to explain. You don't have to. I can say to you, Chris, I'm tired. And you wouldn't go, "Gee, why? Were you up late?" Like, a caregiver understands tired. A caregiver gets that bone tired. Oh my God.
Caregiver gets a last minute cancellation.
Yes.
Caregiver gets frustration and anger.
Yes.
And who better yet to share that than with another caregiver? That's kind of why we do what we do.
Absolutely.
We share our experiences, because in that, advocacy heals us. And
Yes.
I say that a lot. I've said that a lot here in our 30 and 30. And I really should give credit to my friend Joni Aldrich. Those aren't my words. Those are hers. But advocacy does heal us in the midst of caregiving, no matter if you're in the middle of it or if you're 6 years past it.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. And, I'm a problem solver. So in trying to find, how do I fix this? But there is no fixing.
There's no fix.
You're not fixing dementia. Like, sorry, that ship, there isn't even a ship for that.
Mm-hmm.
And in my quest of trying to find, well, what can I do? How do I do this better? What can I do in this situation? I would find all of these people were out there, and everybody was in that same, oh my God, what do I do? And then that's when I found Daughterhood in looking for resources. And then I saw that they had these circles, and I thought, well, I'm not doing a support group. I've never done a support group. What's that?
Right.
Isn't that embarrassing? How do you do that? I don't want to talk out of school, right, Chris? Like, I'm not going to say anything.
Right. I get it.
I can't say that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a circle in my area, so I started one. And no idea. I had no idea what to expect. I had no idea what this was going to turn into. And sitting in that room that first day with these other fantastic women who were struggling just like I was. And we all came in, and we all had that same weight on us. That weight. You know how you can just see it in people's eyes.
You can just see it right.
It's palpable. And we sat there and we talked, and at the end of the meeting, it was like, oh my goodness, I had oxygen.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And that, because it wasn't just you sitting in your house thinking, oh my God, how am I going to do this? It's, oh wait, there's somebody else like this. Oh, there's somebody else like this.
Yeah.
And it's that validation. And it's okay to say, I love my mother, but this is hard.
It is perfectly okay to say that. And who better yet to understand that than somebody else who's walked that journey?
Exactly.
It's always been, it's interesting, caregiving, you think of caregiving in 2020 and moving forward, there's so much more data and information, people writing about it. You started in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And in looking back, even in dementia and Alzheimer's, there wasn't a whole lot out.
No.
Then. And, the internet, it wasn't what it is. And connecting with other people wasn't what it is today. And it's that modern technology that has really been the springboard of being so supportive to people to where you can do something like the Daughterhood Circle, and you
Absolutely.
can be there.
Absolutely.
It makes you wonder what did people do?
Well, I can tell you when my youngest was born, she had a congenital eye condition. There were 50 in the world. And it was back early 2000s. So there wasn't this. There wasn't groups. There wasn't anything because there were 50 in the world.
Yeah.
So talk about not having an idea of what to do, how to help her, and every doctor was like, I don't know, you could try it. So we did. And I threw everything I could at it. But in that and in different situations, people would give someone my phone number to call because it was like, can you talk to this person? Of course I can.
Of course, because you're a resource.
Exactly.
You've walked it. You understand it.
Exactly. But to go from that with no information and, well, you can try it, to dementia with, you put Google, I want to go home dementia, and there's 77 million articles about it. And none of them can really help you.
No, that's right.
Did you try this? Yeah, I did.
We could do a whole show on that,
actually. Oh, yeah. But it's the information is there, but it's the human connection that gets you through.
It's the human connection because it's, as our motto here on the Whole Care Network, it's our stories. It's the stories we share that brings people together because they're diverse, yet they're the same.
Yes. And even though we're not together, you're not alone. And that's the thing, the isolation and the loneliness in this, because you do feel like this is it, that you're the only person in the world with this.
And it's so amazing because that is so true. Caregiving happens, as my listeners know, because of two reasons. An unfortunate accident or an untimely diagnosis. And suddenly you're thrust into this role.
Yes.
Without any preparation.
Yep.
And it was interesting. We had a nurse on recently. That was, she's not going to mind me mentioning her name, Deb Kelsey Davis. She's a nurse and she ended up taking care of her parents. And she certainly was prepared on the clinical side, but you're not prepared on the emotional side. Because you don't know how those emotional strings are going to pull you. Yep. And that's why connecting with other caregivers is so important.
Absolutely. I don't think you're ever prepared, even if you know it's coming. Even the day that you know that your spouse, your parent are going to forget who you are. You're still not prepared. And on the first day or on the 30th day, it's still a punch in the face because it's like, oh my goodness.
There's two very common aspects to caregiving. There's a beginning and there's an end. And the one common aspect for both of those life-changing events is we're not prepared for it. There's no way you can. I stood there 2 days before Richard died with the hospice doctors convinced that he was going to get out of that bed and he was coming home because that was the plan.
Wow, Chris.
2 days before he died. And
how can you be prepared?
How can you? Oh, Roseanne, you're so awesome.
Thank you, Chris. Right back at you.
Yeah. So I think this is, we had such a delightful, but kind of a serious conversation. So what I want to do here is take our break.
Okay.
And then when I come back, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
I want to know one fun fact about you, but I think as well as I know you now, I think there's like a gazillion fun facts. So we're going to have to kind of trim this down. And then after we get your fun fact, I want to talk a little bit about your podcast and your activities with Daughterhood Circle and get you more involved with the Whole Care Network. So how does that sound?
Fantastic.
Got to put your thinking cap on.
I will put it on.
Okay. You're listening to Healing Ties on the Whole Care Network. We will be right back.
Tomorrow on Healing Ties 2.0.
Well, greetings, everyone. It is Christopher McClellan, your host for Healing Ties. And join us tomorrow for our 30th podcast as we complete our 30 podcasts in 30 days as we celebrate National Family Caregivers Month. Tomorrow is our capstone episode where we're going to kind of review what we've done this past month in November and talk about where we're going with the Whole Care Network and Healing Ties moving into 2021. So thanks for listening to all these episodes, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Healing Ties 2.0. Available at thewholecarenetwork.com/healing ties and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
Well, welcome back, everybody. I am continuing my delightful conversation with my younger sister from another mother, Roseanne Corcoran, from Daughterhood Podcast and the Daughterhood Circle. And I saw the pumpkin cheese cake pie she made on Thanksgiving from a picture that she said, well, if I could figure out how to mail it to you without it, I'd send it to you. But it certainly looked good.
It was great. It was great.
Well,
it was great.
Rub it in just a little
I'm
bit
sorry.
more.
I'm sorry. My mom was the.
But I did have homemade ice cream.
Okay. Well, there you go. See, we can swap recipes.
You know, maybe I should do a pumpkin homemade ice cream.
There you go.
Oh, there
I
you
would.
go.
I would.
I would. I could send you a picture.
There you go.
Okay,
I look forward to it.
I gave you more slack time now to come up with one of your fun facts. So, Roseanne.
I have a lot of fun facts, Chris.
Yes,
I don't know.
That's another podcast. Roseanne's
that would be another podcast.
Roseanne's fun facts.
Yeah, that is a lot. I guess the one that gets me street cred would be that I'm in my college's Hall of Fame for softball.
Oh. So I would imagine, I got to say, let's see. You were probably a pitcher.
I was not.
You were not?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I played I was a shortstop in college. Mm-hmm.
Okay. You were the shortstop.
Shortstop. Yes, sir.
So I would, I'll date myself. So then you were, to me, if you were the Hall of Fame shortstop at college, then to me, you're the Ozzie Smith of shortstops.
Correct. There you go.
Okay.
There you go. Very good. And
so did you do the jumping jack when you came out on?
No, I never flipped over myself. No. But I did do acrobatics on the field to get to the ball. So
there's you see. Now we're already into two fun facts.
And I was 25 when I was playing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They used to call me Mom.
I could say something, but I'll be real in trouble. So.
Yep, used to call me Mom. So
yeah, it's your fun fact. Well, that's
my
cool.
fun fact.
Yeah,
that's a non-incriminating fun fact.
That's a non.
I can tell you other ones later.
This is a family show.
Yeah, so. Exactly. I can share other ones with you later.
I like that. I did not know that about you.
No, yeah.
How
about that?
I did not know that about you. So, congratulations. That's quite an honor.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. So, tell our listeners a little bit about your podcast. And I know you go right now. You're going about once a month.
I'm going once a month because I am an active caregiver.
Yes, you are.
So I know people do. I mean, some people do daily podcasts. God bless. And I don't know how you did 30 in 30 days. Let me tell you, Chris.
Not for much longer.
Man, when you said you were going to do 30 in 30 days, I thought, wow, that's a big undertaking.
The secret behind that, if you don't mind me jumping in.
I don't mind at all.
It'd been about a year and a half since I really had gotten into since I've been podcasting myself. I've been on other people's podcasts and radio and then I reconnected with my friend Bill, and he's doing the producing of the show. And this was to kind of hone up on both of our skills. And I think especially I noticed in this last week that I know I've turned the corner and getting back to where I feel really comfortable. Bill figured it out the first day because that's Bill.
Because he's the man.
Because he's the man. But no, that's one of the reasons why we decided to jump into this 30 and 30 is to kind of tone up on my skills.
That's a great idea. I write them, I produce them, I edit them, I I record them. I do all of it. So for me, one a month is about, I always think I could do more.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think, let's not jump in there because I am actively caregiving. This way it gives me some time because the editing alone, you know.
Don't be surprised if Bill pops in on this podcast right now and talk about the editing. So.
There he is.
There he is.
Yes. So, it's wonderful though. I've met so many great people. And if a year ago you would have told me I would have been talking to the people that I've talked to, I would have said, you're crazy. You're crazy. But it's just wonderful in that how many people that you can reach. And when people reach out, because you don't know, Chris, listen, I'm in my closet talking. I don't know if anybody's going to listen. I don't know if it's going to reach anybody. I don't know if it's going to make a difference to anybody. But I wanted to at least put it out there to try so that if somebody was, sitting in their bedroom just at the end of their rope and I could at least keep them company, I would be happy with that. Do you know?
Beautifully said. And you are making a difference. You are reaching people. And your podcast is very popular. And the guests that you have are awesome. But the reason that is because you're awesome.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
And I'd be remiss without telling our listeners, and you're going to explain it much better than I am, that your essay was just selected with Next Avenue.
Yes, sir.
And that'll be available on your website and your landing page on the Whole Care Network. But tell us a little bit about that.
I've been writing to me is cathartic. And when I've always written, I would leave little notes for myself, like, you're doing the best you can. So that when I found it in 10 years, I could look at it and go, oh, okay. You know what I mean? When I'm beating myself up, when I'm flogging myself for something I didn't do, I could find that note. So when I moved my mom in, what started out as symptoms and what was happening morphed into what happened every day. And then that morphed into, oh my God, how I felt about it. And I wrote that down and I just start writing it. And it's gone into a document and now I type in everything. And a few months back, I thought, I love Next Avenue. They're an aggregate type.
Yeah. And, if I could model the Whole Care Network after an organization, it would be Next Avenue.
Right?
They're
I mean, they
awesome.
they're fantastic. And they were the first website I found for people over 50 that didn't make me feel like I was old. Okay? Like, I really liked it.
A lot of contemporaries there.
Yeah. So they had a writing contest and they were talking about midlife, things in midlife. And listen, my midlife has been caregiving on steroids, and then trying to figure out how to still be involved with my family and my kids growing and all of that. And I thought, I'm going to write this. And it was a letter to dementia. It was Dear Dementia.
Dear Dementia.
And it just kind of came out that way. And when they let me know that they had picked it out of all of the submissions and that they picked it, I was like, oh my goodness, really? Like, wow. I was shocked. And then the 12 of us had to read our essays onto their podcast because they're starting a podcast. As everybody's starting podcasts, right?
Everybody's starting a podcast. That's
yeah.
right.
So I was honored that they thought enough about my little essay to include it on their site.
Yeah. Well, and I'll include it on our little site too.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And honestly, to say with our Daughterhood circles, we're all in that same way, whether we're caring for a parent or a child or a spouse or whatever. We're all in this, I don't want to say quagmire, but I want to say this stew of emotion and worry and guilt and everything, right?
Well, it's kind of like the Caregiver's Bakery. You put all the ingredients in and you mix it up and you don't know what's going to come out, but something comes out.
You never do. And I liken it to what is that Greek, Sisyphus, the guy that's rolling the boulder up the hill?
Yes.
Right?
I have a vision.
Zeus ordered him to roll the boulder up the hill for eternity. We're all rolling the same boulder up the hill, but we can do it together.
Together.
We can at least keep each other company while we're rolling the boulder.
And what good company you are to keep.
Thank you, Chris. I feel the same way about you.
So, Roseanne, I could talk to you for the rest of the day.
I'm in.
And I have a feeling this isn't going to be our last conversation because I think I guess I can get an invitation to the Daughterhood podcast. What do you think?
Oh, of course you can, Chris. Sure.
I've got a little story to share too.
Listen, I'm more than happy, and we will make that happen. Definitely.
I'd be honored to be on your podcast. But let all of our listeners know how they can access your podcast, all your contact information, so they can receive all of Roseanne's warm fuzzies.
Well, of course, right there on the Whole Care Network.
Yes, you do have a landing page.
I have a landing page on the new
site, on the new Whole Care Network, yes. Mm-hmm.
Right, on the new Whole Care Network. And of course, at daughterhood.org, they can go. I have a podcast link there. Click on the podcast link. All the show notes are there. The resources that Daughterhood provides are there. Access to all of our circles are there. Everything's there. So daughterhood.org.
Daughterhood.org.
Yes, sir. And if you want to send a message to me, I'm on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at Daughterhood The Podcast.
So, Roseanne,
Yes. Tell me.
With the stories that you share and the resources you provide, you are certainly someone who's creating healing ties all around us. I can't thank you enough for this delightful and meaningful conversation. But more importantly, I can't thank you enough for your friendship. I just think the world of you.
Thank you, Chris. And I of you, believe me. It's a pleasure, and I appreciate you having me on, and I appreciate everything that you have shared with me.
Full speed ahead. So, goodness, well.
Thank you.
That does it for this episode of Healing Ties. As you know, I'm your host, Christopher McClellan. You might know me as the Bowtie Guy. I've created a life to love after caregiving ends by sharing stories and resources and being with awesome people like Roseanne Corcoran. Healing Ties is produced in the posh downtown studios of Oddbox Production in St. Louis, Missouri, and is part of the Whole Care Network. Check out the soft launch of our new Whole Care Network website, where you get an opportunity to meet Bo. I just know you're going to love Bo. But and follow us for one more episode of Healing Ties 30 and 30 podcast as we're celebrating National Family Caregivers Month. And that podcast will be tomorrow on November 30th. I'm getting kind of tongue-tied because it's sad that this is coming to an end. But thanks for everybody for listening. We'll see you soon for another episode of Healing Ties. Bye for now.
Ciao.
This is WCN, the Whole Care Network. You talk, we listen.